When I thought about making this video, I thought it would be pretty straightforward, but after taking the conversation to Twitter, I realised I was quite wrong. Thanks to everyone that suggested a song for this. It's brought plenty to my attention that I'd completely forgotten about or hadn't even heard before, so it's been a great week of rediscovering great songs. But let's cut to the chase. What are we classing as a one-banger wonder and why? Here's my definition. A band that nailed it with one song when the rest of their output was relatively unknown or didn't really resonate. A huge caveat to this is obviously it's just my opinion, and it's not intended to discredit anyone mentioned. I did initially go with one hit wonder on Twitter, but this led to some confusion, and people were referencing chart positions to justify the likes of Hot Hot Heat or the Bravery going in there. However, the charts don't really work for this era of music we're looking at, as most of them didn't get a look in. But before we get to the top 10, let's go through the more divisive choices and explain why I didn't feel they made the cut. Hot Hot Heat, Bandages. Several people were keen to give the one banger wonder tag to this song, understandable in some respects, as it's the only one of their songs you would hear on your average indie club night. But as this tweeter points out, they had plenty of other popular songs, and that first album is definitely one of the better ones from that period, in my opinion, so they didn't make the cut. The Bravery, An Honest Mistake, does feel like it would be a bit of a banker, but I always remembered the other great song they had called Unconditional, and I'm possibly being ignorant of their other songs as well. There was a couple of shouts for Wolfman with For Lovers, but the fact that Pete Doherty sang and fronted the version that it became best known for ruled it out for me. Peter, Bjorn and John. Now this is one a lot of people will expect to be in there, and I definitely thought it'd be going in at first. But after it was mentioned on Twitter, a few people pointed out that the album is great. I had a listen and have to agree that there's more to them than just the young folks song. Although I do think that this song stands above the rest, as the Spotify players would suggest, but I still had to cut it. Pete and the Pirates, Mr. Understanding. Another one that seems like an obvious choice, but after going to their Spotify, their song called Blood Gets Thin grabbed me. Not only because it's a great song, but also because the penny dropped that the singer now fronts the band Teleman, who are excellent. So that's another one ruled out. And finally, easily the most divisive one of the bunch, The Walkman, The Rat. This one really did split opinion, and after listening again to that first album, it's undeniably better than their other songs. But I just can't class them as a one-banger wonder, as they've gone on to have a huge long-spanning career, not too dissimilar to Pete, Bjorn and John. It's obviously an amazing song that captures that period of time, and I'm sorry to those who voted in this poll, but the replies kind of sum up for me. It's just not doable, and unfortunately this isn't a democratic vote. So now we've sorted that out, let's get into the top 10. At number 10, Jolene and the Jing Jang Jong, is that how you say it? With Lucio Starts Fires. This was a song that I only had a vague recollection of and didn't really appreciate at the time. I kind of dismissed this band at the time and only really knew the lead singer from his acting appearances in the likes of Nathan Barley and Peep Show. But this is a great song, excellent chorus and a solid start. Number 9, Test Icicles, Circle Square Triangle. Embarrassingly, I only recently made the connection with the name of this band. Not sure why I've mentioned that or admitted it, but anyway, they were only active for 2 years, which is a bit mad, but this was a refreshing style of song for this era and would mix things up at club nights. Dave Hines is in there, who's gone on to be massive. My band actually supported him when he was playing as Lightspeed champion at a small venue in Hull, and he was a very nice fella. I'm sure some people would argue the case for Test Icicles' other songs, but they're still going in. Number 8, Black Kids. I'm not going to teach your boyfriend how to dance. This one was mentioned a few times on Twitter. I remember not being that bothered about it at the time. It was the late 2000s and kind of reminds me of that early scene dying off. But on reflection, it's a very good tune and cements its place in the top 10. Again, I'm sure people will argue a case for their other songs, but none of them really grabbed me by the bollards, to be honest. Number 7, Les Incompetents, How It All Went Wrong. I think this is probably the ideal candidate for this category, as it is literally their only song on Spotify. I know there's other platforms, but it really is this song doing the legwork for them. Obviously we've had Spectre and other bands spawned from this, and achieved greater success. I don't remember this song being a favourite of mine back in the day, but it does capture something about the era, and will get you dancing for sure. 6, The Whip, Trash. Now this one really does take me back to nights out in the likes of Leeds. From what I remember, it was part of the more electro side of things. Maybe not to everyone's taste, but I really enjoy the build-up and how direct it is. And the extended version on Spotify is great. Number 5, Spinter Band Oh Mandy. Cheers to Daniel Ferguson on Instagram for reminding me about this excellent song. A really lovely nostalgic number. It's an ideal candidate and deserves its place at number 5. Number 4, Blood Arm, Suspicious Character. Now this is one I definitely forgot about or didn't really know who it was by at the time, so thanks to the people on Twitter that flagged it. The main melody is just great, and the whole song has a brilliant simplicity to it, and it would definitely get you dancing. Number 3, White Rose Movement, Love Is a Number. Again, this is one that I wouldn't have been able to name, but it all came back to me once the likes of Conor McNicholas and the Rakes guitarist Matt Swinnerton pointed it out on Twitter. According to Wikipedia, it was a song that Kelly from Block Party said he wishes he had written. The band had a lot of critical acclaim early on, it seems, and you can see why. It's a very cool song. At number 2, Claw, Love and Pain. This just has to be in my top 2. It was really a staple of the indie club night in Hull we used to go to every week, and it's just nailed on for this category. I was surprised to learn this band was British, as I always assumed they were American from the singing style, but irrelevant of who's singing it, it's a banger alright. And in at number 1, it's Head Automatica, Beating Hearts Baby. There was only really one choice for number 1. This song just captures those club nights perfectly for me, and was summed up by Sam Landfill on Twitter, who said, "It single-handedly united indie kids, rock, punk and emo kids on the dance floor, and could be deployed in a rock club or an indie club, a real utility player." And I would second that. It was a real banger that would be the glue between the indie and the rock floors at the club I used to go to. I'm sure people could argue for their other songs, but at this point I couldn't really care less. Let's get a £2 double vodka Red Bull and go wild. So that's my top 10, but I've made a playlist of the top 30 using people's suggestions on social media, and there's a link to that in the description. But what banger have I massively overlooked or called wrong? Have your say in the comments.